Welcome to the meat ant setup, now officially named the Desert of Down Under. It's fairly quiet around here, and there's not many ants in sight. None here, none over here, so let's get to the bottom of this mystery. In the corner, here we can see piles of dead ants. I wonder what this could possibly be. Maybe a graveyard? A mysterious quicksand? Or a spider? Yes, for a really long period of time, there was a spider living in here. Unfortunately, I didn't get much footage of the spider itself, but you can obviously see its damages to the colony. It must have found its way in one night in search of a good spot to set up a small web, managing to capture about 10 or so of my meat ant workers. Late one afternoon, I noticed a large cricket leg being dragged back to the rock face, and then I saw it, a small copper-red spider, a sort I often find in and around my house, was living amongst this rock in the back corner. If we take a closer look around the Desert of Down Under, and even poke around a bit, the sand has now taken shape and is extremely resistant to any pressure. It's also very evident around the rock that the spider inhabited, due to the fact that I used a spray bottle with water to try and agitate whatever was living in there, in the hopes of it crawling out and catching it. As you can see, that obviously didn't go to plan, and all that I ended up with was just some really hard sand once it dried. The dried sand gives a pretty bad effect if disturbed, but I'm pretty sure with a little work and rescaping, we can truly make this setup that much more wicked. Just around the corner is a small spot in the tank that I like to call a den. It looks like the perfect spot for a small lizard, but I don't think that would be very practical. I feel as if it would get hunted down by the meat ants. Once again, on the outside is some minuscule spider webs of some kind, but I haven't seen any complications at this part of the tank. Perhaps it was the small red spider's original location, as there is a little dead isopod underneath the web. Taking a look further into the den, is that a dead moth? What the heck is it doing down there? All I can say so far is that this tank has, or well had, some very strange occupants other than ants. The colony has also established many garbage sites, which is actually really important for captive ant colonies. You see, in the wild, colonies also do this so that they can dispose of their waste without harmful mold growing, close or even in some cases within the nest. As you can see, the waste spots are as far from the nest as possible, all the way at the other end of the Desert of Down Under. You've also probably noticed that there are a couple of scattered feeders around the place. This is so that the ants will never run out of water, even if I forget to hydrate the nest. This yellow feeder is full of honey and water mix, also so that the supply of sugary goodness won't perish. So far, we know that the whole colony couldn't possibly have been harmed by the spider, as I removed it weeks ago. We also know that the colony couldn't have died of starvation, as there is lots of evidence to prove so. We also know that the mold couldn't have been involved, as the colony has disposed of all waste responsibly, and we also know that the hydration and sugary substances couldn't have played a part in the fact that it's so quiet around here. You're probably wondering, how's the colony going? Are they even still alive? So let's take a look under these business cards, shall we? Whoa, look how much brood there is! Almost all of it is ready to pupate. There's even some really odd orange larvae, but not many fresh eggs or workers. All the workers in here look like they don't have much energy, like they aren't ready to spring into action. This is really concerning, guys. I'm not really sure what the problem is here, but they don't seem to be functioning as a normal colony, like they used to in their old setup. On closer inspection, I realised that on the right side of the nest, there was quite a lot of moisture buildup on the surface of the acrylic. Was I hydrating them too often? Were their conditions not ideal? Then it hit me. The reason this colony is so quiet is because the current nesting habitat must be too humid and moist, and they must need another option within the tank. But I was also talking to a mate of mine, Riley, from Aussie Ants, and he said that his insanely huge colony of meat ants was slowing down as well, and not a single of his larvae developed into pupae. I then put 2 and 2 together, making the assumption that it is most likely because we are in winter that the meat ants are slowing down, as well as the fact that their nest might not be ideal. In the colony's old setup, they were rather hesitant on moving into a new nest, and the majority of the colony liked to stay in the test tube. I instantly got to work thinking and eventually came up with a solution. I grabbed a couple of test tubes and started making some simple test tube setups. I was going to add a couple of these to the desert of Down Under and give the ants a second housing option. I was stuck for ideas on where to put the test tubes, and what to cover them with, and then I realised that there was a spot within the desert of Down Under that couldn't be more perfect. It was there all along, under our nose. The den. I removed the webs with some tweezers. Took the isopod out. And of course the moth, that had been there for what looked like months. It was now time for the test tubes. It was pretty tricky because I thought there was enough room in the den for them to just slide in, but I ended up lifting the piece of driftwood and placing them underneath. I then covered them with some sand, making sure that they weren't exposed to the light. I ended up making an ant latch onto the cricket, and then put it inside the test tubes within the den, so that they will discover the new nest sooner. We can only hope for the best, that the colony of meat ants which inhabit the desert of Down Under will eventually move into the test tubes provided. And until next week, Ant Invasion out.